After 14 years of building the company's top-performing division from the ground up, the new CEO called me into a quick meeting. "We're restructuring to maximize shareholder value," he said flatly. "Your position is being eliminated effective immediately." I simply nodded, went back to my office, packed my things, and left without a fuss. The urgent texts from him started pouring in when. Imagine pouring your heart and soul into something for 14 years, building it from absolutely nothing into a powerhouse, only for some fresh-faced corporate hotshot to waltz in, declare restructuring, and toss you out like yesterday's trash. That's exactly what happened to me, and trust me, it was a gut punch that eventually turned into the sweetest comeuppance imaginable. My name's Clayton, and for 14 years, I practically lived Northrise Apparel's Eastern Division. I built that thing from an empty warehouse to their top-performing unit. Not with fancy corporate jargon or buzzwords, but with genuine trust, consistency, and honest-to-goodness hard work. I handled our key accounts personally. I knew their concerns, their families, their little quirks. I mean, these weren't just clients, they were relationships that brought in over $4 million in annual contracts, year after year. Then Brandon showed up. Our new CEO. Been with us, 8 weeks? Harvard Business School haircut, custom suits, the whole 9 yards. And get this, he never once asked me about our clients. Never wondered how we'd grown 18% year over year while every other division flatlined. Never cared why Suncoast Financial and Vector Properties, our 2 biggest accounts, specifically requested me on every single quarterly call. When security walked me to my office to pack my things, I saw Alicia from HR. She'd been there even longer than me, 15 years, and she couldn't even meet my eyes. The CFO, Thomas, walked past, then doubled back, tried to say my name, but just patted my shoulder awkwardly and kept going. It was all so clinical. I packed quietly. Family photos. That fishing trophy the Vector team gave me after a company retreat. A handwritten note from Diane at Suncoast, thanking me for rushing an order when her boss was in a bind. 14 years of my life, fitting into a single cardboard box. I just nodded to security, walked to my car, no drama, no threats. Just drove away, watching that glass tower shrink in my rearview mirror. For the first time in 14 years, I didn't feel the weight of 30 employees, millions in contracts, all on my shoulders. You'd think that would feel liberating, right? Instead, it just felt wrong. I started at Northrise back when they were just a dusty warehouse in Charlotte. We were scrambling just to get basic uniform contracts with regional banks and healthcare companies. The Eastern Division was bleeding money when they brought me in. 9 employees, a mandate, fix it or close it. Over those first 3 years, I personally drove to every prospect within 100 miles. I learned their pain points, late deliveries, shoddy quality, inconsistent sizing with their current suppliers. And I fixed it. All of it. My team grew to 15, then 25 people. We moved into a real office. I promoted Janice from customer service because she had this incredible way with difficult clients. I hired Keith, fresh out of design school, because his mock-ups solved problems we didn't even know we had. My son, Dylan, was 12 when I started at Northrise, now he's 26, an architect in Seattle. My wife, Jennifer, supported every late night, every weekend emergency, every time I had to fly out to save an account. It's building something that will last, I'd tell her. And she believed me. 3 different CEOs came and went during my time, and every single one of them valued what we'd built. The company went from regional player to national competitor, and my division consistently led the way in growth and retention. But then the merger happened last year. Kestrel Group bought us out, installed their own board. I wasn't worried initially. Numbers speak for themselves, right? But the cracks, they started showing. Brandon Kerr arrived with his efficiency experts and their endless spreadsheets. They just didn't understand the human relationships that held everything together. In meetings, they talked about client acquisition costs, but never once about client relationships. 2 weeks before they axed me, Brandon asked for a report on all major accounts. I compiled everything: contract values, renewal dates, growth opportunities. What I couldn't put on a spreadsheet, though, was how I'd attended the funeral of Suncoast's procurement director's father. Or how I personally inspected Vector's first major order at 2 a.m. to make sure everything was perfect for their company-wide rollout. When Brandon's assistant scheduled our final meeting for just 10 minutes, I knew. I'd seen it happen to others. I just never thought it would happen to me. The morning after, I just sat in my home office, staring at my phone. Nothing. No messages from work, my former work. Jennifer brought me coffee, squeezed my shoulder. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "They don't understand what they've done," I told her. The weirdest part? I wasn't angry. Not at first. Just this strange, almost unsettling clarity I hadn't felt in years. I opened my personal laptop and pulled up my contacts. Not the company database. My own records. Names, numbers, personal emails. 14 years of genuine connections. The first call came at 9:30 a.m. Diane from Sun Coast Financial. "Clayton," she said, her voice tight, "we just got a mass email about organizational changes at Northrise. Please tell me you're not affected." I took a slow breath. "I was let go yesterday," I told her. The silence on the other end spoke volumes. "Who's taking over the accounts?" she finally asked. "They didn't say," I replied. Another pause. "I assume one of Brandon's new team members." She sighed. "We've got our contract renewal in 6 weeks, you know, Clayton. I need to be frank, the board only approved staying with Northrise last time because of you. The pricing was higher than competitors, but you always delivered, always fixed problems before they became problems." I didn't respond. I could hear her tapping her pen against her desk, a habit she had when making tough decisions. "I need to talk to my team," she said finally. "Can I call you back on this number?" "Of course." After hanging up, I went downstairs, sat at our kitchen table. Jennifer was making lunch. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "I think I will be." My phone buzzed with a text from Keith, my design lead at Northrise. "Brandon called emergency meeting. Asked about client contact info for your accounts. No one's giving him straight answers." "What's happening?" I just set the phone down. Didn't reply. Later that afternoon, Harold from Vector Properties called. Then Michael from Eastern Bank. Then Stephanie from Bright Healthcare Systems. Every conversation followed the exact same pattern: shock at my departure, deep concerns about the future, urgent questions about their contracts. I was honest with every single one of them. I didn't badmouth Northrise or Brandon. I simply answered their questions. Yes, I had been terminated. No, I wasn't aware of any transition plan. Yes, I was considering my options going forward. By evening, I had 5 missed calls from Brandon Kerr. I didn't return them. That night, I opened my laptop and created a spreadsheet of my own. Not of clients or contracts, but of possibilities. Companies that had tried to recruit me over the years. Competitors who might actually value someone with my experience and connections. Even the option of starting my own consulting firm. For 14 years, I'd built bridges for Northrise Apparel. Now, I had to decide whether to burn them down or build entirely new ones for myself. I chose the latter. 3 days after my termination, Brandon's texts became desperate calls. I let them all go to voicemail. On the 4th day, I finally picked up. "Clayton, we need to talk," he said, his voice tighter than in our last meeting. "Some concerns have come up with several key accounts." "I'm sure your team can handle it," I replied, watching a cardinal land on the feeder outside my window. "That's just it. Suncoast is threatening to pull their contract. They're saying they only worked with us because of you." "That's their decision to make," I said calmly. He cleared his throat. "Look, maybe we moved too quickly with these restructuring changes. The board is concerned about the potential revenue impact. We could discuss a consulting arrangement to help with the transition." For a moment, I actually considered it. A consulting gig would be easy money while I figured out my next move. But something just felt off about his sudden change of heart. "I appreciate the offer, Brandon, but I need some time," I told him. "I'll think about it." That afternoon, I met Jerry Campbell for coffee. He'd been Northrise's CFO before the merger and had also been pushed out. He still had friends at corporate. "Brandon's in full panic mode," Jerry said, stirring his coffee. "Apparently, Suncoast and Vector both sent formal letters indicating they won't renew their contracts." "Did they say why?" I asked. "Loss of key relationship personnel. Leadership instability. Pretty much corporate speak for, we only trusted Clayton." I nodded, feeling this strange mix of validation and, honestly, a little concern for my former team. "There's more," Jerry continued. "Brandon told the board you're sabotaging the company, calling clients and telling them to leave." I set my cup down. "I haven't told anyone to do anything, Jerry. I've taken their calls and answered honestly. That's not how Brandon's painting it. He's building a case that you violated your termination agreement. Might try to claw back your severance." On my drive home, Brandon called again. This time, I let it go to voicemail. When I listened later, his tone had completely changed. Clayton, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We value everything you've built here. The board has authorized me to offer you a senior VP position. Better title, better package than before. Call me back. We should discuss. That evening, Daniel Thompson called. He was CEO of Summit Ridge Outfitters, a smaller competitor who tried to recruit me twice over the years. I heard what happened at Northrise, he said. Their loss. My offer still stands, but I'd like to sweeten it: senior VP, equity stake, and complete control over your client relationships. I told him I needed a few days to consider all my options. That night, I received an email from Northrise's legal department. It claimed I was in violation of non-solicitation agreements. The language was threatening, implying litigation if I didn't cease interfering with company relationships. I just forwarded it to a lawyer friend without comment. The next morning, my lawyer friend, Paul Henderson, called early. This legal threat is paper thin, Clayton, he said, no nonsense. They're trying to intimidate you, but I looked at your contract. You never signed a non-solicitation agreement. The standard non-compete only prevents you from joining a competitor for 6 months. It doesn't stop clients from following you. I remembered signing that contract 14 years ago, in a different era of the company. The old CEO had been straightforward: this just prevents you from taking our training and immediately working for the competition. Nothing about client relationships. So I've done nothing wrong legally? I asked. Not a thing. In fact, if they pursue this, we could counter for wrongful termination. The abrupt nature, the lack of transition plan for a senior leader, courts don't look favorably on that. I thanked him and hung up, just as an email arrived from Janice at Northrise. Subject line: you should know this. She'd attached an internal presentation from 2 weeks before my termination. Brendan had mapped out a complete restructuring. The plan included eliminating my position regardless of performance, replacing experienced staff with cheaper recent graduates, and raising prices on long-term clients by 15% once contracts renewed. A note on slide 12 read: relationship-dependent business model presents significant risk. Need to transition to system-dependent model to maximize margins. They hadn't fired me because I was failing. They'd fired me because I was succeeding in a way that didn't fit their spreadsheet vision. More disturbing was a list of team reduction targets. Keith, Janice, and 3 others from my division were marked for termination once I was gone. I printed the document and sat with it at my kitchen table. Jennifer read over my shoulder. They were planning to dismantle everything you built, she said quietly. And blame any fallout on me, I added. My phone buzzed. Another text from Brendan: board meeting tomorrow. Need to discuss reconciliation ASAP. Please call. I set the phone down and looked at the presentation again. The last slide showed projected revenue after all changes, 22% higher margins, assuming all clients stayed despite price increases and service reductions. It was a house of cards. I called Daniel at Summit Ridge back. I'm interested in your offer, I said, with one condition. I want to bring my core team. 5 people total. Done, he answered without hesitation. When can you start? 2 weeks, and I'll need official offer letters for all of us today. That evening, I called Keith, then Janice, then the others. I explained everything: the termination, the restructuring plan, their names on the cut list. I told them about Summit Ridge's offer. All 5 said yes immediately. I slept better that night than I had since the termination. I didn't return Brendan's calls or emails. Instead, I scheduled meetings with our top clients. Not to poach them, but just to check in, as a friend. I met Diane from Suncoast for lunch near her office. We're not renewing with Northrise, she said, before even ordering. The question is where we go next. I can't solicit your business right now, I explained. Legally, I need to be careful. She just smiled. I understand. But hypothetically, if you were working somewhere that offered similar services, we would be very interested in following you. By week's end, I'd had similar conversations with all 5 major clients. None of them had received calls from Brendan or anyone else at Northrise attempting to salvage the relationships. Meanwhile, Summit Ridge sent formal offer letters to my team. One by one, they submitted their resignations at Northrise. The following Monday, Brendan showed up at my house unannounced. I was in the garage, working on my old Chevy, when his Mercedes pulled into the driveway. We need to talk, Clayton, he said, anxiety clear on his face. This has gone too far. The board is breathing down my neck. Key team members resigning. Clients threatening to leave. Sounds challenging, I replied, wiping my hands on a rag. Unfortunately, I've accepted a position elsewhere. His face flushed. You're joining a competitor. That violates your non-compete. Summit Ridge isn't on the restricted list in my contract, I said. Paul Henderson confirmed it yesterday. You're talking to lawyers now, Clayton? Be reasonable. Whatever they're offering, we'll beat it. I closed the hood of my truck. It's not about the money, Brandon. It never was. Then what do you want? Name it. I looked at him directly for the first time. I wanted respect for 14 years of building something valuable. I wanted a conversation, not a 10-minute dismissal. I wanted my team protected, not targeted for elimination to pad some spreadsheet. His expression changed as he realized I knew about the restructuring plan. That was just a draft, he stammered, a scenario planning exercise. Goodbye, Brandon, I said, and walked past him toward my house. The board will fight this, he called after me. We'll sue you. Summit Ridge. Everyone involved. I turned back one last time. You can try, Brandon. But before you do, ask yourself, what will cost shareholders more? Letting me walk away quietly? Or a public legal battle explaining why all your major clients and top talent left simultaneously? He had no answer for that. A week later, I started at Summit Ridge. 2 weeks after that, my non-compete period ended. Within a month, 4 of our 5 major clients from Northrise had signed new contracts with Summit Ridge, specifically requesting me as their account manager. I never called anyone else at Northrise. I never spoke badly about the company in public. I didn't have to. 6 months after I joined Summit Ridge, I was reviewing quarterly numbers in my new office when Daniel knocked on my door. You might want to see this, he said, placing his tablet in front of me. It was a financial news article about Northrise Apparel. The headline read, CEO Brandon Kerr steps down amid financial shortfall. The article detailed how Northrise had missed quarterly projections by 18%. The Eastern Division, my former territory, had seen nearly 40% of its business evaporate. The board had accepted Brandon's resignation, effective immediately. I handed the tablet back without comment. You don't seem surprised, Daniel noted. Hard to build relationships on spreadsheets, I replied. That afternoon, I received a LinkedIn message from Thomas, Northrise's CFO. The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss recovery strategies. Your name came up. Would you consider a conversation? I didn't respond. Instead, I finalized our quarterly presentation for Suncoast Financial. Our team had delivered their new corporate uniforms 2 weeks early. The feedback had been overwhelmingly positive. Diane had already introduced us to 2 other potential clients in their network. The next day, Jerry Campbell called. Thought you'd want to know, Kestrel Group is trying to sell off Northrise. The stock's down 22% since you left. Who's buying? I asked. That's the thing. No takers yet. Word is they're trying to reach out to you through back channels. The board thinks you're the only one who can stabilize the client relationships. I thanked Jerry for the information and went back to work. Later, I took my team out for lunch to celebrate our first 2 quarters of consecutive growth. Keith showed sketches for a new product line. Janice shared updates on client feedback. We discussed Summit Ridge's expansion plans. No one mentioned Northrise. That evening, I received a direct email from Eleanor Barnes, Northrise's board chair. Clayton, the situation has become untenable. We made a grave error in judgment. Would you consider returning as CEO? Complete autonomy, significant equity stake, board seat. Name your terms. I closed my laptop without replying. The next morning, I called a meeting with my team at Summit Ridge. I've been approached about returning to Northrise, I said plainly. I wanted you all to hear it from me first. I'm declining the offer. Keith nodded. Figured they'd try eventually. Janice smiled. Too little, too late. Exactly, I said. We're building something better here. That afternoon, I sent a brief email to Eleanor. I appreciate the offer, but I must decline. I'm committed to my current position. I wish Northrise the best going forward. 3 days later, the news broke. Summit Ridge Outfitters had acquired Northrise Apparel's Eastern Division in a strategic asset purchase. The press release highlighted the move as reuniting key talent with established client relationships. Daniel had negotiated the deal quietly, paying pennies on the dollar for what had once been Northrise's crown jewel. The board had no choice. It was either sell to us or watch it collapse entirely. I never had to strike back directly. The market did it for me. 1 year after my termination from Northrise, I drove past their former Eastern Division office. The Summit Ridge logo now hung where the Northrise sign had once been. The building looked the same, but everything inside had changed. We'd rehired some of the staff who'd been let go during Brandon's brief tenure. We'd recovered 3 more client relationships that had deteriorated after my departure. The division now generated more revenue under Summit Ridge than it ever had under Northrise. I parked across the street and watched employees leaving for the day. Familiar faces mixed with new ones. They looked happy, engaged, purposeful. When I got home, Jennifer was in the kitchen making dinner. I drove by the old office today, I told her. She studied my expression. Nostalgia, or closure? Closure, I think, I replied. Did you know it's been exactly 1 year? She nodded. I remembered. That's why I made your favorite tonight. Over dinner, Dylan called from Seattle, sharing news about a major project his architecture firm had landed. How's the new job going, Dad? He asked. Good, I replied. Building something that will last. The same words I'd used for 14 years at Northrise. But this time, I knew it was true. Later that evening, I received a text from Jerry Campbell. Northrise's remaining divisions just got acquired by Gravora Group. Clean sweep. Nothing left of the original company. I set my phone down and walked out to the deck. The spring air was warm, filled with possibility. I thought about Brandon, wondered briefly what he was doing now. I hoped he'd learned something, though I doubted it. I thought about all those years building bridges for a company that didn't value them. The late nights, missed family dinners, postponed vacations. The sacrifices had been real. But so were the relationships I'd built. In the end, those relationships had followed me, not because I'd asked them to, but because we'd built something authentic together. No spreadsheet could capture that value. No restructuring could erase it. The next morning, I arrived at Summit Ridge. Early. I reviewed our quarterly projections, now 30% above target. I checked our client retention numbers, 97%, the highest in company history. Daniel stopped by my office. Board approved your proposal, he said. Employee ownership program starts next quarter. Keith and Janice will head up the implementation team. I nodded. They'll do it right, you know. Daniel said, leaning against the doorframe. When all this started, I thought we were just getting a talented executive and some lucrative client relationships. I didn't realize we were getting a completely different way of doing business. Relationships over transactions, I replied. Always. After he left, I opened my desk drawer and removed the fishing trophy Vector Properties had given me years ago. I placed it on my shelf, next to new photos of my team at Summit Ridge. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need vindication. I just needed to build something that would last. This time, I had.